Islam Alaikum, how are you?
We alaikum Islam Zubeer, I'm fine thank you. Who will today talk me about?
Al Zubeer ibn al-Awam. He is Al Zubeer ibn al-Awam al-Asadi al-Qurashi, the aunt of the Messenger of God and nephew of Mrs. Khadijah, one of the missionaries of paradise, and one of the forerunners to Islam, and he was called the disciples of the Messenger of God.
Yes, the Messenger of God said every prophet has a disciple, and Al Zubeer is my disciple.
He was the first to raise a sword in Islam, one of 6 Shura companions chosen by Umar ibn al-Khattab, and the husband of Asma daughter Abu Bakr. Al Zubeer grew up in Mecca as an orphan, as his father was killed in the Fayar War. He embraced Islam when he was young, and was one of the first Muslims. After Abu Bakr embraced Islam, he started calling for Islam, so Al Zubeer embraced Islam at his hands.
Abu Bakr took him to Messenger of God to offer them Islam and read to them the Quran and what God had promised them of his generosity, so they believed the ruler and believed in what came from God.
His uncle Nawfal used to torture him to turn back from Islam, so he used to hang him on a mat and smoke on him. Al Zubeer said, "I don't disbelieve in religion," so when he found that they wouldn't respond he left him. One day Al Zubeer heard that the Prophet has taken to the highest part of Mecca. He went out carrying his sword. He met the Prophet and said to him, "What is wrong with you?" He said to the Prophet, "What happened?" The Prophet said, "What were you doing?" He said, "I will strike with my sword whoever takes you."
When the harm intensified against them in Mecca, the Prophet ordered them to go out to El-Habasha and told them that its king doesn't oppress anyone with him, and it's a land of truth.
He didn't stay in El-Habasha for a long time, but he returned to Mecca with some, then married Asma daughter of Abu Bakr. He didn't have money at that time except for his horse.
Asma was pregnant and went to her father and the Prophet while they were in the cave on the migration journey with food.
Al Zubeer migrated after the Prophet, and Asma gave birth to her first child Abdullah, and he was the firstborn of immigrants in Medina. The Prophet made Al Zubeer a brother of Abdullah ibn Masud in Medina. Al Zubeer attended the Ghazawat with the Prophet and was in the cavalry and was brave.
After the death of the Prophet, Abu Bakr placed Imam Abd the guard who guarded Medina. Because many in the war of apostasy wanted Medina, Abu Bakr placed guard to spend the night around it, including Ali ibn Abu Talib, Talha.
Al Zubeer fought in the wars of apostasy and presented the finest example of courage in the Battle of Yarmouk. He participated in the conquest of Egypt with Umar ibn al-As. He was the commander of the forces that Umar ibn al-Khattab sent to Egypt. He had a prominent role in opening the fortress of Napoleon, so some of the soldiers and he climbed the wall, and Al Zubeer stood up and grew proud. The people of the fort, though that the Muslims had entered the fort, so they fled, leaving their position. And Al Zubeer came down and opened the fort and stormed the Muslims.
In the sedition of Ali ibn Abu Talib, after the killing of Osman ibn Affan, Al Zubeer and his companions regretted not helping Osman and Talha killed in this sedition. During the fighting Al Zubeer left and go to Ali ibn Abu Talib. Ali asked him, "I asked you by God, did the Prophet say that you were fighting me while you are unjust?" Al Zubeer said yes. Al Zubeer remembered that and left the fight.
When he returned heading to Medina, Ibn Yarmouk caught up with him in the valley of Saba and killed him while he was praying. When they brought him, killed, to Ali ibn Abu Talib, he wept intensely and said, "I heard the Prophet say, fire to the killer of Ibn Safiyyah."
Death is a lot of martyrs and the companions to raise the status.
Yes, may Allah bring us together with them in paradise.